Josh Homme just did an interview with Guitar World. I first skimmed through that article, which I will link down below if you want to read it, and I thought, this is kind of like what we have seen before. He's dancing around all the questions and we are not getting anything proper here. But then I read it again and it is actually quite good and it is interesting. So I want to talk about some of the few points. He doesn't want to talk about pedals at all, and they are only referring to the Maestro Paramedic EQ that he did talk about when recording Villains. But not much talk about pedals. He did mention that he did use a couple of dummy pedals placed behind his amps to sort of trick people. And the only pedals that I've seen photos of next to his amps, I think that is the Boss GE7 and a Fat Boost 3 from Fulltone for the Them Crooked Vultures tour. And to me that seemed legit that those pedals were used, but I'm not sure. They might be the dummy pedals that he is referring to. And then he goes on to talk about PV amps, not the PV Decade specifically yet, but how he has always seen and used PV amps up and through the years, because they are always around in all guitar stores and all churches and venues and stuff like that. He's saying that his first proper amp was the Ampeg VT40. This one, and he bought that because it looked right to him and it was old, which is kind of random, I think, considering how iconic a lot of Ampeg amps has become for the Queen sound. It seems like it could be something completely different that he ended up with, but he went for the VT40. And hey, I do have a lot of Kemper profiles of these amps, the Ampegs, the TubeWorks, the PVs, down in the description if you want to get them. They are really good actually, yes. And also please check out my Patreon if you want to support the channel. Yes. He's also mentioning Teisco guitars and how he bought a Teisco guitar together with the Ampeg VT40, and he owned a lot of Teisco guitars, which later led him to experiment a lot with auto phase pickups in his Echo Park guitars and Motorave guitars. This is something that I haven't explored at all, but it is really interesting, and I think I've seen some talk about it online, some rumors about that actually. He's also talking about the Kyuss era and how he ended up sounding too much like the Misfits, and then he started to experiment with other things, drawing some inspiration from Black Flag, and that he ended up using a 12-channel PA into a bass cabinet using the neck pickup. And he says, anything is an amplifier to me. I love playing out of old stereo tuners, old tape machines, anything with a speaker and a jack. Forget quarter-inch. RCA TT, if I can get in there, I will. With a Les Paul and Marshall, I know what's going to happen there. So he wanted to do the opposite of a Les Paul and a Marshall. And then there's some talk about the PV Decade. When I found a PV Decade back in the day, it was $15 at a flea market. There was no risk in trying it. It was so small I could take it anywhere. I could hammer nails into it and it wouldn't break. And I am assuming that this is around the pre-production or the production of Songs for the Deaf. And then he goes on to talk about the PV Decade as a bass amp. First and foremost, a bass amp, because they used it as a bass amp on Songs for the Deaf. And that lines up with everything that we have seen from Eric Valentine, who produced that album. A lot of people are still thinking that the PV Decade, that is the main source of that big Queens of the Stone Age guitar sound. But I think it's quite clear from reading this that he did use it first and foremost as a bass amplifier, and he started to use it on Songs for the Deaf. But then he goes on to say, for many years we've used Decades to warm up before gigs, and in a strange way we never sound better. You can make yourself sound like you're in the Kings in 2 seconds, and if you want to blow it out, it blows out in such a strange way. And then he goes on to talk about why he hasn't done any signature gear earlier, because Ampeg did reach out to him at some point about making a Ampeg VT40 signature amp. It was like, you're the only person playing this since Keith Richards, so we want to use that image, but we want to make the amp like this. And I wasn't having it, and I love Ampeg. I have so much Ampeg gear. So it seems like they really didn't agree on how to approach a Ampeg VT40 reissue or signature amp, and that he walked away from it. He's also mentioning that he wants signature gear that is affordable so everyone can buy it, and a Ampeg VT40 signature amp or reissue would probably not be that cheap. And he's talking about some Echo Park signature stuff as well, that he really wants to do. And he's mentioning again that it's kind of unfortunate because those guitars will not end up being for everyone, but he still wants to do them, it seems like. And that is also quite interesting. But with the PV Decade, I gotta do something with PV that everyone can get. And there's a notion of a little kid in a small town. When they get started playing guitar or bass, I'm there with them. Which, yeah, I agree with. It's cool that you have some signature gear that is affordable and for everyone. I get that that is not possible with everything, but with the PV Decade, for sure that is possible. And talking about the PV Decade 2, the Josh Homme signature amp, I still haven't tried one. Hey PV, what's up? I've almost seen every other gear YouTuber here on the platform trying either the pedals or the amp. So there you have it, a new interview about gear with Josh Homme. There's a link down below again if you want to read the article. Bye.